Morning, continuing her series on living a fearless life, helping you to conquer each and every fear that you might have. Mandi, good morning.
Morning, Vicky. It's so good to be with you again. This is our third time together.
It is already.
Yes,
already,
it
and
is.
it's been amazing, hasn't it?
It's been wonderful.
It's been wonderful. So, Mandi, our fearlessness series. I don't know where we ended last week. You were responding to some questions that listeners had sent through.
Yes.
And speaking into their fears. And so, what is it that you have planned for us this morning?
Yes, well, I realize that fear wants us to shut down. It really does try to shut us down. So I thought what I could do is just recap a little bit. So for some of you who have just tuned in or haven't heard me share on how to overcome fear, I thought I'll spend 1 minute on my story and then we do a deep dive into what we're speaking about today.
Let's go for it. Yeah.
So if you haven't listened to me before, as Vicky said, my name is Mandi and I have been working at overcoming fear for a few years now, actually. I was in an armed robbery 3 years ago with my kids at home, and the enemy just kind of came in and affected my life through a spirit of fear. In the past 3 years, as I've been working on dealing with fear, I've learned that it has many faces and many forms. And I worked at processing it to the point where I realized fear of rejection was evident in my life, and that manifested through performance. So we've come in and we've been sharing on how to overcome fear, how to work through it. We've been working through the series on ways to conquer fear, and listening to the responses from the listeners out there, we've seen that fear is so evident, it's so prevalent. Driving here this morning, I was sharing with Vicky earlier that my car just kind of stopped working, and along the way the exhaust started making this weird noise and it just almost wanted to shut down, and you start thinking, oh, am I going to even get to the studio on time?
Exactly.
And but we made it here, and I just realized that fear is not that it's like the car, but it really does shut us down.
It shuts us down, and it's
Totally.
always so close.
That's it. It paralyzes us, and we see in the Word of God where He says that for this reason He has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. This week I was meditating on that passage, and it actually, the preceding verses speak about the faith in his grandmother, and I think it's Timothy. There's a book to Timothy. I think Paul wrote it, and he says to Timothy, I remind you of the spirit, the faith of your mother, your grandmother Lois, and Eunice,
yes.
and all that.
Yeah.
And then he says, and for this reason, because of the laying on of hands, I remind you that God has not given you a spirit of fear. And so if you have faced fear in any form in your life, that's not something the Lord has given you, but He's given you a spirit of love and of power and a sound mind. So we have spoken about that in the past 2 weeks, but today I'd like to carry on from where we stopped off. So we spoke about 5 ways to conquer fear from the inside out, about acknowledging your fears, about deciding how you can defeat it with the help of the Lord, an inside out pattern. And then today I want to speak into healthy patterns and choices. I think as I've been meditating on it and thinking, God does change us from the inside out.
He does, yes.
And because fear comes to shut us down, the Lord wants to wake us up. And so I realized fear then would cause you, if you fear rejection, one of the listeners wrote in and said that she fears trusting someone again because she's been hurt.
Yeah.
When I looked back on the comments from some of the listeners as well, fear of conflict has actually come up really highly. And if you fear conflict, or people are fighting and you don't know how to handle it, one of the feedback has been that your heart starts beating. The person said their heart starts beating, their hands get sweaty.
Yeah.
Fear does that. It shuts our bodies down. It actually kind of closes us in like this. It stops us from thinking clear, full thoughts.
It does.
And so when you receive what the Lord has for you, He wakes you up. And He gives you that ability to know you are so loved. You are so, so deeply loved. And when you live out of that place of knowing I'm loved, then you can have the ability to overcome. He also says He gives us the power to overcome. It's not in our own strength. We don't work on conquering any fear, whether it's fear of rejection, violence, fear of death, whether it's fear of conflict, whether it is fear of trusting someone. It's not something you can change from the outside in. It's actually something you have to work at from the inside out. And it's with the power of the Lord, where it says it's not by my might, but by your might, but by my power, says the Lord. It's His power working through us that actually gives us the ability to overcome. And then he shows us how to think clearly. And so when you live out of that place and he gives you a spirit of self-discipline and full clear thoughts, you can start to make better decisions.
Yeah.
So in addressing this, the lady that said that she's struggling to trust and was struggling with fear of conflict, I wanted to say, follow this pattern of recognizing what fears you have in your life. So bring it into the light, and then start to renew your mind and renew your way of thinking the way God would want you to do, and then start to embrace healthy patterns, and then repeat. So say, okay, this is what I have in my life. So you recognize the fear that you have, you start to renew your mind, your body, your spirit with what God says, and obey him and follow what he says practically. And then you embrace a new way of living, a fearless way of living. Fearless, I think we all face fear. So to live fearlessly is actually really hard. I find I battle it sometimes. Even this week, for example, my alarm system just stopped working. And because I was in an armed robbery, I kind of have a bit more peace knowing I have an alarm, beams around my home at night. Not that my hope is in the beams, but it just kind of settles me. And since it hasn't been working for a few nights, I thought, oh, what do I do? I can knocking at the door.
Yes.
Because it knocks at the door, even though I feel like the Lord has given me the ability to overcome. Fear still knocks at my door, but I can choose to open the door and say, hello. Or I can choose to open the door and say, sorry, faith stands here. And my faith is in God, and my faith is in the ability to overcome. And you know what, Vicky? I've been sleeping so well.
Yeah.
The past 2 nights, since it's even been off, I sleep well.
It's great that you say that, and I think it's an important thing, because I was just you are going to say, okay, hello, you're here. However,
you're not welcome.
However, you are not. You're not welcome here.
That's it.
You're not welcome here.
Yeah.
And like you say, it's you win the battle from the inside. From the inside out. And I was also wanting to say, about how you go into the Word. You obey God. I'm reminded of the scripture that says, "Be transformed by the renewing of your mind."
And that ties in with what I want to share about habits. So a little bit of neuroscience. I'm not a doctor. I've done a bit of reading up about it. But what I've learned is that habits travel 200 times faster than our natural thought processes.
Oh, wow.
So habits are these inbuilt responses to triggers, to things that we have in life. So let's say, for example, I used to smoke. I didn't, but let's say I used to be a smoker. And I stopped smoking, but it was a habit. When I felt nervous, maybe, the person would smoke or whatever. They stopped smoking. Even 10 or 20 years later, some heavy circumstance comes along and it triggers, and suddenly I want a cigarette. And I don't know why, because I would have, quit it many years back. But it's that habit that's been in my brain that at certain situations trigger certain responses.
Yeah.
Some people comfort eat. When they go through stressful times, there's certain habits that get triggered. Some people can't sleep. Or there's various things. So your habits travel 200 times faster than your thought processes. So if you want to overcome fear, this is a little tip, and something that I've applied to my life and something that I've learned along the way, is start to work on your habits. Habits take minimum 21 days, but they say it's about 63 days. So it's 3 cycles of 21 to actually be established in your brain. Because our thought patterns in our mind are like roads. The more we think them, the bigger the roads become. They become like highways, or these thought patterns that we travel along. We transform our mind through the renewing of the Word of God. So God says to us, oh, do not fear, or bring your worries to me, cast your anxieties onto me. Or choose to think on things that are good and pure and excellent. So you have to now choose to renew your mind, to change your habit of maybe defaulting to worrying about finances, worrying about, am I going to lose a loved one, worrying about how am I going to handle when I have a fight with someone, worrying how am I going to trust someone again. And you have to choose to say, okay, I'm going to renew my mind. What does God say about this? And start a new habit. So we can't control the thoughts that come into our mind. It's like enemy will shoot arrows, and we just have our normal thoughts.
Normal thoughts as well.
Yeah, but we can control our responses to those thoughts.
You know.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just very interesting, you know, that you're talking about thoughts, because once again, Linda and I were talking about exactly the same thing.
Yes.
And how when that fear and worry, anxiety comes knocking at your door, you know, you kind of sit back and say, okay, what have I been thinking about?
Yeah.
You know, kind of trace back and say, what have I been thinking about? What have I been worrying about? You know, and you can trace it.
That's
you can trace it back and you know, find the cause of that fear that is knocking at your door.
Totally. And one of the things I've also learned along the way is that your body is a truer reflection of what's going on in your emotions than what you realize. So a key to this is starting to cultivate self-awareness. So linked to emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
So when you experience something, your heart starts beating a bit faster, or your hands are sweaty. Like when I came into the studio, I was sitting outside waiting, and my heart was beating a bit faster because I was unsettled about my car not working along the road, and my son, who's just got his driver's license, dropping me off, and now he's having to drive to school. He's in matric, and my car's making this horrible rattling sound, and suddenly my heart rate was elevated.
Yeah.
I teach a calming technique actually to parents, and maybe I could teach it to all of you now as well.
Absolutely.
So you hold up your hand. You could do it visually, or you could do it practically. You hold up your hand and you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth as you go down.
Okay.
In through your nose and out through your mouth. And your downward, your breathing out through your mouth needs to be a little bit longer than your breathing in.
Okay.
So you kind of expel the air.
Yeah.
The best is actually to sit properly, but you do this in, out, through all your finger, like digits.
Okay.
And at the end, your heart rate is calmer. I actually started doing it outside. I pictured my hand. I was like, okay, Mandy, in, out, in, out.
Yeah.
It calms you down. So when you're feeling anxious or worried, just start to pay attention. What is your body telling you? And start to do this. So whatever fear you're facing, it could be even fear of rejection. If I fear rejection and I want to start a business, my worry or my anxiety could increase. My adrenaline is now increasing. I can't think clearly. So you calm your body down. And that's linked with body, soul, and spirit. You work renewing your mind. You start new habits. You start to pay attention to what your body's telling you, and you start to follow what God tells you. It's a partnership. It's a partnership with the Lord, and it's a partnership kind of with your own self.
Your own body.
Yeah.
Your own body. And the other thing I was thinking about the body as well, it kind of helps to know what's going on.
Yes.
You know, when the fear comes, you know that your adrenaline shoots right up and you go into fight and flight mode.
That's it.
And cortisol levels also increase. So, so kind of helping, you know, knowing what's going on in your body as well, and thinking, okay, so this is what is happening.
That's it.
And is also part of, you know, being self-aware.
Yes.
Saying, okay, I know what's going on here.
Yeah. And I think half the challenge comes when we're not self-aware and we start to react to situations. We don't respond, we just react. And something will come up and we find ourselves flying off the handle, or crying, or we don't know what's going on, or we want to, like I said, comfort eat or something, and we're not self-aware, because fear does that. It, you know, danger and fear are different. So danger is the possibility that something harmful could happen to us. I'm walking on the edge of a cliff and I could fall down.
Yes.
That's a dangerous situation. But fear is an emotional response to a situation I could be in or actually am in. So again, if we're fearing failure, then that fear is almost like a perceived situation I'm in, and it will stop me from trying something because I'm too scared it's not going to work. And linking to your adrenaline, one thing I learned when I was conquering fear was I had too much adrenaline in my bloodstream. Mine was predominantly based on fear of violence, fear of my kids being attacked again, and those were some of the fears that some of you have told me. You've emailed me and said, yes, I'm afraid that I can't protect my kids, or I'm afraid of this, or driving, or all these different things, fear of bad things happening to me. And so your adrenaline spikes, and one of the ways to combat that is to exercise. It's something so simple.
It's true.
It's so
true.
simple.
It's true.
Yes. So I made a goal that I would run 5 kilometers 3 times a week and push myself to get that adrenaline out.
Get that heart rate up. Yeah.
And do things that bring joy. The other morning, it was such a beautiful morning here in Muizenberg, and I parked my car along the beachfront, went for a run, and then went for a swim. I found myself grinning probably like almost like I say, grinning like a pawpaw. But I thought these drivers must have thought, what's this girl doing? She's running along the beachfront, grinning from ear to ear.
Yeah.
But those happy hormones set me up for a great day.
And it works.
It works. And it says that, when we consider it all joy when we face trials. So when you're facing fear, say, Lord, where's my opportunity for joy in this?
Yeah.
And allow him to renew your mind so that you can receive the joy. And it's a wonderful thing. I also wanted to share a bit about being aware of the doorways. Kind of like our eyes and our ears are almost doorways, like portals to our souls. And our soul is our mind, our will, and our emotions. So whatever fear you're facing, even if you're fearing illness or fearing you've been hurt in the past and you're fearing of getting hurt again, so you don't want to go into relationships, be aware of what you listen to and what you look at. It's a little tip. But just be aware, should you listen to the news late at night or not? For me, I choose not to hear any negative news, like news of violence, those horrific stories.
Horrific stories that you get all the time.
In the afternoon, because I know it triggers thought patterns, because thoughts produce more thoughts.
Yeah.
And if we're not diligent, we can find our thoughts running rampant, and before we know it, we're feeling the spirit of fear starting to grip our hearts and our minds. So be aware of what you listen to. A while ago, actually not so long ago, probably a month ago, do you remember all the talk around child trafficking and kids being stolen?
Yes, still hearing a lot about that.
It comes everywhere. So, as parents, I could think, now my kids are not safe. They're not even safe at school.
Yeah.
I have to be there early, and it produces fear. And my challenge to you, if you are feeling that, is don't share those stories. Don't share the stories about this child was stolen here and that, because you don't know what news is real or not real.
Yeah,
unless it's a validated source. Yeah. They say the world we're living in is a VUCA world. They stand for different things, but the A stands for ambiguity. And what it means is there is so much news out there that we don't know what is true anymore.
Yeah.
You can read anything on the internet and you don't know if the source is true or not. There's so much fake news out there, but the Word of God is always true.
Yeah.
And so we can always apply that. But relating specifically to children, you can't put your head in the sand and say, well, it's not there. It is the reality. The world we live in is a world where we do need to care for our children and protect them more. But don't give in to fear-mongering. And so by that I mean don't give in to sharing stories, horrific stories of things that produce fear. Because it just breeds it. It feeds it.
It feeds on it. Yeah.
So don't deny and pretend no, it's not there. But choose what you think about. Choose what you share. Choose with whom you share stuff. And when you get, feedback from people, you get WhatsApp messages, and they share all these stories.
Yeah.
And you look at it and you go, oh, this doesn't make me feel so good. If it produces a fear response in you, then you say, Lord, I give it to you, and then you choose not to pass it on.
Choose not to pass it. Exactly.
Choices.
Comes
back, a Jewish rabbi apparently once said the way to wisdom is learning to ask a good question. By asking good questions, you lead to better choices. So is this what I've received true? Is this helpful? Is this faith producing? Is it like producing hope in me? Hope is future focused. So if you're feeling like fear is affecting your life so much that you feel like despairing, then choose not to read stories that lead you down that hole of despair. You're paying attention to the portals, to your eyes and your ears, to what you listen.
Yeah, you know what I'm also thinking as I listen to you, and we're close to finishing now.
Yes.
Is I have a very, very dear friend who was recently diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer and has just had surgery, had a big tumor removed and part of her colon as well.
Wow.
It's not anything, these are not things that you ever see coming. They just come, and you have to deal with them. But the reason I'm sharing this is that she spoke about how she said to the Lord, here's my life.
Yes.
Lord, here's my life.
Yes.
And the peace and the joy that came with it were amazing. That that she found herself, she was actually laughing.
Wow.
But her situation isn't one of laughter, quote unquote, but she found herself laughing.
Yes.
And I was thinking about the beauty the beauty of surrender, of complete surrender to the Lord. You know, even when you're in a situation that causes you to fear,
yes,
His peace
just carries you.
Is priceless.
It is, and it's tangible.
I've
learned that when you ask God to give you your give you His peace, it's tangible. It calms you down. It settles your heart rate. So yeah. And tying in with that, Vicky, I've just released a devotional, a new version, and it's called Fearless, Overcoming the Stronghold of Fear. And it's a 5-day devotional where you can go through different choices, choosing faith over fear, you know, different things, hope over despair. So it's free, you know, I don't earn anything from it, but it's just out of my heart to encourage you. So have a look for it on YouVersion, and I think it would inspire you.
Oh, very, very definitely, Mandi. 5 ways to overcome fear.
Yeah.
All right. All right. How can you be reached, you know, for somebody who's listening right now? And
well, you could email me, hello@mandihart.net. It's MandiHart. Okay. But I also have a website, www.mandihart.net. So it's easy to remember, Mandi with an I. My mom decided she really wanted to make my life a little tricky sometimes.
Yeah.
But mandihart.net, and I do have a blog on living without fear as well. So sign up and enjoy it.
Great. Mandi, thank you. Thank you so much for coming in this morning. And it's been wonderful. Thank you.
It's been wonderful being here. Thank you, Vicky. And I'll chat to you next week as well.
Yes. Bless you.